Hi everyone, and thanks for dropping by the channel today. We've got a very interesting topic, which you probably have talked about quite a bit, which is RAW versus JPEG. And I'm really kind of an advocate of RAW, but to be honest with you, my trip up north with Bill Fortney has maybe not changed my mind, but maybe helped me along the way of using JPEGs some of the time and RAWs some of the time. So what I'm going to do this week is we're going to go over these things. I'm going to show you some of the examples that I've got here and talk a little bit about RAW versus JPEG. Hey, if you wouldn't mind, while you're watching this video, hit the like button and comment maybe. And also, it would be great if you subscribe. That would be awesome. Okay, let's look at some examples of JPEG files and RAW files out of the Fuji cameras. These were taken out of a Fuji X Pro 2 owned by Bill Fortney. Now, as you can see in this first one here, this is a classic chrome simulation. The next one here, and they haven't been manipulated, have not been manipulated at all. The next one here is a Velvia example. You see it's a little bit brighter. And both of these can be adjusted a little bit. So let's see, we'll use, we're just going to use a straight up auto tone. And as you can see, it gets a little bit better. Actually opens it up a little bit. And adds a little bit of vibrance. Saturation maybe can come up a little bit, but as you can see, it does enough of a good job to convey the subject. Let's go to the Velvia example. Hit the auto again, and as you can see, it really boosts it quite a bit. So there is some latitude that you can get away with in shooting JPEG files and sRGB. The color space is not nearly as large as it is with a RAW file. Now I'm going to show you 3 files here of Bill Fortney, and I'm going to start off with this one here. This shot here is a classic chrome simulation. As you can see, it's not bad. For a backlit shot, it's not bad. And you can see that there's a little bit of detail missing in his hat here, but in a little bit of the sky here. You can see it's, maybe a little bit yellow in the sky. Now, there's some manipulation we can do to make this more normal. So if we go to here and just hit auto, as you can see, it really adds a lot of yellow into it. So if we can maybe dial back on the yellow a little bit. I don't like that at all. See, as you can see, having a little bit of trouble with it. So we'll go to the next one. The next one, this is more of a, this is either Ostia or it's a Velvia. I can't remember. It looks kind of like a Velvia-ish type one. But anyway, we're going to go here and we're going to hit auto and see what auto does to it. Now, auto isn't so bad, but it's still kind of yellow, and we're still blown out in his cap here. And as you can see, there's a little bit of details come back, and you can go in here and you can really probably, but you see the highlights are already knocked all the way back. Now, if we go up to the Velvia one here, same thing's true. Maybe add a little bit here, but as you can see, maybe brightness, the whites here, we can't really do anything. You see, there's not a lot of latitude at all. So let's go to the third one, and the third one is, this is a straight RAW file. Now, the cool thing about working with these RAW files is that there's a lot of manipulation you can do. Now, I have presets set up for certain circumstances like backlit. So if I hit backlit, as you can see, it's already pretty darn good. And as you can see, a lot of detail in his hat here. It's starting to come back a little bit. But the sky is blue, it's not yellow. So if we cut back here a little bit on the exposure, things get a lot better. You can actually see some detail in his cap here. And it's starting to look more normal. Because the JPEG files, they're good, but the RAW file is so much better. Now, what I'm telling you is that using the RAW files for important work, for landscape work, and things that really matter is probably a better choice. But, you can really do a lot with the JPEGs out of a Fuji camera. They're beautiful. We've got great simulations that can be adjusted with highlight and tone. So you could actually set up a film simulation. Let's say you wanted to use classic chrome and you wanted to make sure that you could see the detail in his hat and bring up your shadow detail a little bit. So you could dull this down a little bit. You could make it actually look pretty close to this, which is kind of amazing if you think about it. So adjusting your JPEGs before you take the shot and actually have maybe your favorite JPEG film simulation, and then certain adjustments that you could go to later when you're shooting different circumstances. So what I'm saying in here is that RAW files to me are the best for important work, but for almost everything else, JPEGs and actually shooting in JPEG simulations in bracketed mode is really a great way to go. Now, Bill Fortney shoots exclusively in JPEG, and he shoots with film simulation bracket. So I believe he shoots with Provia, Velvia, and then he shoots with Acros plus Red. And I'm telling you, his work is beautiful, and he does a little bit of manipulation afterwards. But gotta say, they all have their place. JPEGs and RAWs have their place. So if you primarily shoot for social media, JPEG is the way to go. If you're shooting for landscapes that mean something, that are going to be printed on paper or canvas or whatever it is, then you have to be shooting in RAW, in my opinion. So the age-old argument, which is better, RAW or JPEG? I'd say with Fuji cameras at least, it's a tie, because they both have a place. They both have a reason for using either one. And they both have to be shot in different ways. JPEGs, you got to make sure, since the information is pretty baked, and they're sRGB, smaller color space, you want to make sure that your exposure is correct. Now, with RAW files, you can really, you can push the envelope here and there. You just got to watch out for your shadows and highlights, and use your histogram to do all of your exposure manipulation. So Bill had reminded me that JPEGs do have a place, and he's quite right. I mean, I shoot all of my news assignments, I shoot in JPEG, and the only things that I adjust are maybe the highlight and shadow a little bit, and I also maybe adjust my white balance just a little bit here and there, because it's pretty easily done in Lightroom or in Photoshop, which I primarily do all my news assignments in Photoshop, not Lightroom. And I use Photo Mechanic by Camera Bits, which is a great program for captioning and not processing, but going through your images, captioning, and pushing them out to Photoshop, and then saving them back into your file menu. So another one of the cool things that you can do with Fuji cameras is you can process your RAW photos into a JPEG inside your camera, which is really, really interesting. And then you can spin that out to social media right from your camera to your iPhone or your whatever you use for a phone. So I want to show you a little bit about that, because that's really kind of cool to me. Maybe it'll interest you, maybe it won't, I don't know. But it's a lot of fun. I'm going to be using it here on an XH1. But I'll tell you where it's really useful. It's really useful on a camera like an XT30 or a, let's see, an XS10, which only has one card slot. I've got this set up to put the JPEGs onto a different card. So, that's kind of cool, because I'm not looking at all of them. But all I'm looking at is the RAWs, because I have it set up to view on the first card. So I want to show you some of those here. I'm going to go through how I use it on the XH1 here. It's kind of neat. And you can compare, really, the JPEG. You can't really compare the JPEGs. Although, it's interesting. The RAW files, since they're showing you a JPEG preview, it's interesting how the camera is going to be showing you the preview of the JPEG film simulation that you picked. And I've got this on bracket mode, so it's bracketing different film simulations. So it's kind of fun. It's showing me the differences, which is kind of neat, I think. So really chalk that one up to Fuji. No other cameras do this. which is pretty amazing to me. So here we go. I'm going to show you some on this camera and how I go through that little process. And you can really change a lot of different things. It's kind of cool. So stay tuned for that. Here's playback. And what we're doing here is we're going to push the Q button on this is the XH1. You can see this is the Velvia simulation. Let's go to, wait a minute. This is the Ostia simulation. So let's go to the back of the camera and we're looking at the preview here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the Q button and up comes this raw conversion, which is kind of cool. So we're going to go down here and we're going to skip through these right here. Going to go right through to film simulation. Now we're going to change this, or this is the raw file. So what we're going to do is we want to pop this out as, now see it's already set on Ostia Soft because that's what the JPEGs that I was shooting at is what it came out to. So I'm going to try a couple different ones here, but I'm going to leave it on Ostia Soft, and I'm going to go down to let's see. Color, I'm going to leave this at +2 because that's what I had it set at. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make this look exactly like the JPEG that I shot with the camera. Now, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to say is if I wasn't shooting any JPEGs at all, I want it to resemble what the JPEG would look like. And I'm pretty clear it's going to be really close. So let's see. We're going to create this, and you'll see that it's going to look pretty good. So I'm going to hit store by hitting the OK button. Now, I bet that looks really close to the JPEG simulation that I have. And we're going to look at that in a little bit. So here is the image straight out of the camera that has been processed as a JPEG inside the camera. And as you'll see, it is, as you would expect, exactly like the one, except for maybe a little bit of a twist there with the cropping. Because these aren't exactly the same RAW and JPEG files. But as you can see, the processing has made it look exactly like the JPEG file. Pretty amazing if you ask me. So you no longer have to shoot JPEGs when you can process them in the camera if you're not doing something that's really, actually, if you're doing something that's really special and you just want to shoot RAW files, that's great, because if you want to pump one out to social media someplace, you can do that right inside the camera. Pretty amazing stuff. So if you wouldn't mind, please check out my website, kpanphototours.com. We've got a lot of great things going on. We're going to be selling some ebooks soon, and we've got a workshop, not a tour, workshop coming up in September, and we're still doing tours around here on Cape Ann in Northeast Massachusetts. So that's it for this week, and we'll catch you next time.